Ashe! Ashe and Grand Rising once again to you all, my very beautiful people, my highly enriched melanin people. You the Earth's original and organic humans, aka my fellow Africans. Yes, it is I, the Mystic Philosopher. And yes, it is evident that I'm still here with you on this side of reality. And welcome back to the Mystic P is talking again. On the 15 minutes with I, the Mystic Philosopher. This is episode 31. Now back to the topic of discussion, and please let me remind you that the main topic of this series of the Mystic Philosopher is talking again is stress. It's titled Stress on the Mind, or more correctly, the impact that this thing called stress is having on the thing that we human call mind. However, I have just diverted from the main topic to answer a very important question and comment from one of my listeners, who is also one of my free and independent thinking sisters. In fact, upon carefully reading and examining her text, I quickly realized that it is actually a commentary followed by two questions. And in order to do them justice, and knowing how inquisitive her mind is, I will have to respond to them separately. So even though I was hoping to wrap up here in this part 3, wrap up this answer in this part 3, I now also realize that I have to do a part 4, possibly a part 5, and do hope that she don't throw another curveball question at me and have to extend it to maybe part 6 or beyond. Well, anyhow, no problem. I'll go anywhere it leads. And what are the two questions? Number one, her number one question is, how would you describe a person, or what would you say about a person that has become old and is stricken with the disease called Alzheimer, and as a result of their condition, they have lost their senses, their intelligence, their ability to reason, and their memory? And number two, would you now say that they have become lower than animals, especially those animals that can be seen exhibiting a high degree of intelligence, such as dogs, dolphins, etc., that are trained to carry out certain difficult tasks? I anxiously await your response. The second question. So please let me know, home in, and answer the question number one directly. How would you, meaning, how do I, the Mystic Philosopher, describe, or how would I, the Mystic Philosopher, describe the person? Or what would you, meaning, what would I, the Mystic Philosopher, say about a person that has become old and is stricken with a disease called Alzheimer? And as a result of their condition, they have lost their senses, their intelligence, and their ability to reason, and their memory. Now, and my direct answer to that part of the question is this. From my perspective, if or when most things, if not all things, are considered, I would describe that person as being both fortunate, meaning lucky, or both fortunate, meaning lucky, and unfortunate, meaning bad lucky, if you will, all at the same time. And possible he or she is more fortunate than unfortunate. And I will be more than happy to give you some of my reasons for saying this or for saying that. And in order to properly understand my answer and the reasons why the reason that I shall shortly give, it is very important to note that the question did not ask, or my sister did not ask, how would I describe a person that is stricken with Alzheimer? Or how would I describe a person that has Alzheimer? No, that was not the question. But she asked, how would you, meaning how would I, the mystic philosopher, describe a person that has become old and is stricken with the disease called Alzheimer's? And the operative word here in the question is, from my perspective, is the word old. And the operative phrase in the question is the phrase become old. And my reason for pointing this out is that the evidence has shown that there are people that are old, and by old I mean really old when compared to the international official definition of what is old age, that are in excellent health and whose memory are intact. I personally know one person that is over 103 years old, and she is going stronger than people that I also personally know that are younger than age 20. There are some young people today that can't even remember a phone number for 10 minutes. And my search and research, just for the purpose of answering this, my sister's question, has shown that young people has been stricken, and young people are being stricken with this illness and disability called Alzheimer's as well. It's not just how old people think. In other words, Alzheimer's, which causes dementia, affects young people as well. And by young, I mean people in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Here is some proof according to an article on the John Hopkins medicine website titled Early Offset Alzheimer's Disease. And I quote, Alzheimer's disease most commonly affects older adults, but it can also affect people in their 30s or 40s. When Alzheimer's disease occurs in someone under age 65, it is known as early onset or younger onset Alzheimer's disease. A very small number of people with Alzheimer's disease have the early onset form, unquote. The subsequent question that most curious and well-thinking person will ask here is this. What age is considered old age? Or what is the definition of old age? Well, from my perspective, anything or anyone over 50 years of age, aka half a century, is old age. That's my perspective. However, according to the United Nations, age 65 and above is considered the official definition of old age. Here is a quote from one Wikipedia website titled Old Age. Quote, the United Nations has agreed that 65 plus years may be usually denoted as old age, and this is the first attempt at an international definition of old age. However, for its study of old age in Africa, the World Health Organization, WHO, set 55 as the beginning of old age, unquote. So again, the operative word here from my perspective is the word old, and the operative phrase is the phrase become old. So if at all we make it to old age, whatever we may personally consider old age to be before we start falling apart, then we must consider ourselves fortunate, if not darn lucky. The evidence is showing that most youths today are not going to live to see quarter century, which is age 25, especially those that are breeding and living, or more correctly, existing recklessly. And the few that may make it to age 25, a lot of them will be broken up. A lot of them will end up in a wheelchair. And a lot of them will end up being retrofitted with some form of electronic devices or gadgets or electronic and mechanical devices, etc. Let us say that our allotted time here on the planet is 70 years and 10, as recorded in the Adamic race history and holy book. 70 is 60, and 10, and plus 10 is 70 years. And fate would have it, that between age 30 and 40, we are stricken with this very serious and life-altering disease called Alzheimer's. Then that would be very unfortunate, Approximately half of our life would still be in the balance. However, if or when we become brave enough and can face the fact, face the reality that we are fortunate to live to see old age, that something is going to take us out. If we face the reality that something is going to take us out, or hopefully not someone, but something take us out. And if according to the late Bob Marley, and I quote, we truly knew what life was really worth and had lived ours here on earth, and if according to yours truly, you know that life is short and precious and had taken time to smile and smell the rose, then instead of being fearful, envious, and complaining, you would say, that, like Frank Sinatra, and I quote, and now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway, but much more than this, I did it my way, unquote. And for those reasons, I would say a person who lived to see age, or rather lived to see old age before being stricken with Alzheimer's or any other disease for that matter, is more fortunate than a younger person that is stricken with the same. And from my perspective, if and when all things are considered, are truly considered, there is also another potential benefit or potential benefits for a person getting Alzheimer's in his or her old age as opposed to getting it at a younger age. This, I am sure, many of you, my listeners, it might sound controversial to you, but much more, and that at another time. And my reason for saying that he or she would still be unfortunate getting it anytime is because, to the best of my knowledge, Alzheimer is a very severe and devastating disease. And from my perspective, no one in their right mind would knowingly want to get it or knowingly will it on themselves, let alone knowingly will to lose their senses and their memory. However, from my perspective, the other relevant question that most people might be too timid and afraid to ask and inquire into, or might not even be thinking of asking, and one that I, the Mystic Philosopher, would like to ask and explore a bit deeper into it, or into this, is this: who it is that truly suffers the most from this disease, or this illness, or this thing called Alzheimer's disease? Is it the patients, or the victims, or is it the relatives, meaning the families, the friends, the well-wishers and the onlookers of the victims? Who really suffers the most from this disease? I will be there delving into that later on. However, in the interest of time, I think I will have to end this talk here for now and pick up back on this and many other points if and when next I am talking again in part 4 of this, my answer to my sister's questions and comment. So I humbly ask that you please join me in part 4, if or when next I'm talking again, possibly in episode 32. And at the end of answering her question, hopefully to her satisfaction, I will be picking up back where I left off in episode 29. In the meantime and between time, please let me remind you, remember my people, that yesterday is history. It too is dead and gone. No more to come back. Tomorrow is a mystery. It too may never come. But today is a gift, which is why we call it the present day. And so I hereby implore you, I'm imploring you to live for today. By live, I mean claim your natural birthright. And just in case you don't know what your natural birthright is, it is your happiness, it is your joy. Let no one steal your joy. And full joy today and hope for tomorrow. For tomorrow may never come. Thanks for your time and thanks for listening. I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe. 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 I say. Try to keep it on the 15, but I know I went over.